Greetings Netrunners, and welcome to this Netrunner deck building video. First, we'll be looking at a Jinteki damage deck from the first video in our Netrunner game series, and how we put it together. First up, we have the identity. One of the new Jinteki flip ones, which you pay 3 clicks and flip the identity. And of course, for a damage deck, we'll be using the brewery. When you flip this identity, do 2 net damage. That means the point of this deck is to get the runner down to where you can just do the 2 net damage and take him out. As such, we need agendas that are going to help us deal the damage or make them hard for the runner to steal, because our main victory condition is this. So, on to the agendas. First we have Philotic Entanglement. When you score Philotic Entanglement, do 1 net damage for each agenda in the runner's score area. You can only have 1 per deck. But that is extremely handy at late game if the runner has taken a lot of the agendas from you, and that can get you into the position you need to win. Next we have House of Knives. 3 copies of this. Place 3 agenda counters on House of Knives when you score it. Host agenda counter, do 1 net damage. Use this ability only during a run and only once per run. But it can take off that extra point you need to get off the runner when you need it. Next we have Fetal Ai. If Fetal Ai is accessed from R&D, the runner must reveal it. When the runner accesses Fetal Ai, do 2 net damage. Ignore this ability if the runner accesses it from archives. As an additional cost to steal Fetal Ai, the runner must pay 2 credits. So that not only makes it harder for the runner to take it, it's also doing the damage you need. And next we have 3 copies of the Future Perfect. This one doesn't deal damage, but it does make it harder for the runner to steal it, because whenever they access it, unless it's been installed, they have to do the whole guess how many credits you're going to use, 0, 1 or 2, and if they don't get it right, then they don't get to take it. And like I say, the whole point of these agendas is to either be hard to take or to be hard to take or deal damage to your opponent. Now we move on to what is the most important part of any corp deck, the economy. And for that purpose we have 2 copies of Celebrity Gift and 2 copies of Medical Research Fundraiser. Now with Celebrity Gift, it has, as an additional cost to play this operation, spend a click. So it's one of the double click ones. Reveal up to 5 cards in HQ to the runner. Gain 2 credits for each card revealed. Now, in this game, with this deck, you want the runner to run through your damaging ice. So if you reveal cards in your hand, especially if you've got an agenda there, you can tempt the runner into running through your ice. And you can get 2 credits per card. So that's 10 maximum. Also, we have Medical Research Fundraiser, cost of 3. Gain 8 credits. The runner gains 3. Now, you're not too worried about the runner gaining money, because you want them to run more than usual, because that's where they're taking the damage from. Next, we have the all-important ice. And for this deck, we're using 2 copies of Neural Katana, which is do 3 net damage as a subroutine, cost 4 to res, and 3 to strength. Then we have 3 copies of Marker. This is a res cost of 0, a strength of 3, and has the next piece of ice the runner encounters gains in the run after all its other subroutines for the remainder of this run. So after you've got all your other damaging ice, not all of them have in their run subroutines, but this, put at the front of your wall of ice, can make sure that the runner still has to end the run when you need them to. Next, for early game, we have a couple of copies of Pup, which has a res cost of 1, strength of 0, and 2 subroutines which both say do 1 net damage unless the runner pays 1 credit. but it's good for the early game. Another one that's good for the early game, 3 copies of Cortex Lock. And for this deck, that's really strong. It's a res cost of 2, strength of 4, and has one subroutine which is do 1 net damage for each unused MU the runner has. If you get this out early, the runner might not have any of his MU used, or maybe just 1 or 2. And that could be wiping out most of his hand. Then you can just do your 3 clicks, flip your identity, and finish him off. Next we have 2 copies of Swordsmen. The runner cannot use AI programs to break subroutines on Swordsmen. Has 2 subroutines which are trash 1 AI program and do 1 net damage. Strength of 2, res cost of 3. So just another good source of damage. Of course, for the later game we have 2 copies of Tsurugi. Res cost of 6, so a bit expensive. Strength of only 2, but has 4 subroutines, one of which is end the run unless the court pays 1 credit. Then do 1 net damage, do 1 net damage, and do 1 net damage. So it's going to be expensive to get through, because the runner has to pay for each one of those subroutines, or they have to take a lot of damage. Next we have one of my personal favourite Jinteki ice, the Bullfrog. You and the runner secretly spend 0, 1 or 2 as usual. Reveal spent credits if you and the runner spent a different amount. You move Bullfrog to be the outermost piece of ice, protecting another server. And the runner continues the run from the new position. Res cost of 3, strength of 4. Now, the way this is amazing is if you spent a lot of time building up the perfect ice wall, so much so that the runner is frightened to go through it, then using Bullfrog, you can just bounce them when they were trying to run on one of your remote servers or one of your archive servers, and bounce them to this your strongest area of ice, meaning they have to go through it or jack out and take damage. And finally, we have 2 copies of Komano. When the runner encounters Komano, it gains do 1 net damage for each card in the runner's grip for the remainder of this run. So if the runner is being cautious and has kept a high card count in his hand, suddenly he's getting do 1 net damage for each card he has. His res cost of 5 makes it a bit expensive and only has a strength of 1. But with that amount of damage, the runner cannot afford not to break those subroutines. Next, we'll be looking at other ways of doing damage, namely the ambushes. Now, the runner, to win, needs to find those agendas, even though you don't need them as much, since you're focused on dealing damage to him. So, just a sec. We'll be using these ambushes. First off, we've got a couple of copies of Psychic Field, which is Asset Ambush Psi. Once again, you have to spend 0, 1 or 2 credits, and if they run and you have a different amount. And you do 1 net damage for each card in the runner's grip. Once again, if they've kept a high number of cards in their hand because they're frightened of all your net damage, you're doing almost their entire life total to them, and then you can flip your identity and finish them off. Then we have 2 copies of Shock, another ambush, cost of 0 to res again. And Asset Ambush, if Shock is accessed from RMD, the runner must reveal it. When the runner accesses Shock, do 1 net damage even if it is not installed. So just a cheap, simple way of doing 1 net damage. But all the while the runner's looking for agendas, he's going to be running into these. Next we have 2 copies of Shikayu. When a runner accesses Shikayu, you must pay X credits. The runner must take either X net damage or add Shikayu to his or her score ender as an agenda worth -1 agenda points. Ignore this ability if the runner accesses Shikayu from R&D. So it's a 0 res cost as well, and a 0 trash cost. Now that's a really good one, because if he doesn't want to take enough net damage to finish him, or even put him in a position where you could flip your identity and finish him, he's got to take that -1 agenda points, which means he's going to have to spend longer going through your damaging ice, looking for more agenda points. And finally we have 1 copy of Edge of the World. 0 to res, ambush. If Edge of the World is installed and you pay 3 credits when the runner accesses it, do 1 brain damage for each piece of ice protecting this server. So if you've got a really strong wall of ice that you've been using to get your agendas out, that are doing damage to the runner, and you put that behind it. You convince him that it is an agenda. He runs it, gets there, and suddenly that wall of ice is the thing that's killing him, with all the brain damage. Next we'll be looking at some other ways to help deal damage. We have 2 copies of Neural EMP Operation. Play only if the runner made a run during his or her last turn, do 1 net damage. So, if the runner has got himself on 2, 3 cards left in hand, do your Neural EMP to do 1 net damage, then flip your identity and finish him off. And we also have Upgrade Systems Operator Tori Hanzo. First time you do any amount of net damage during each run on this server, instead you may pay 2 credits to do 1 brain damage. So suddenly you're upgrading the damage you're doing. And finally for upgrades we have the Kusai Grid. Upgrade Region. Whenever there is a successful run on this server, do 1 net damage. So they're taking all that net damage, coming through to your agenda, and then you get an extra 1 just for being successful. Now that's a lot of net damage already, but now we need ways to help it out. And a good way to do that is with Assets Dedicated Server. It has 2 regenerating credits. Use these credits to res the ice. You've got expensive ice like Tsurugi in here, so you're going to need a little bit of help getting that ice resed. Next we have Trick of the Light. Move up to 2 advancement tokens from a card to another installed card that can be advanced. So if you've spent a long time building up an asset that's an ambush, and the runner exposes the card, realizes it's a trap, you've wasted all those advancement counters. Or you can use Trick of the Light and just swap them over onto something else. Could be an agenda, or could be another ambush. The runner won't know, or have to find out. And of course, no jinteki deck would be complete without Mushin Notion. Operation Double, obviously you have to play a second click. Install an asset, agenda, or upgrade from HQ in a new remote server. Place 3 advancement tokens on that card. You cannot score or res that card until your next turn begins. Or however, what you can do, use Mushin Notion, put out a trap or an agenda, use Trick of the Light, swap the advancement counters off of it onto another one. And you can score that one you're swapping onto in that turn. Not only that, but if you're taking them off of them, the runner might not think it is an agenda if it is. And finally, the last 2 cards for this deck, 2 copies of Tech Startup. When your turn begins, you may trash Tech Startup. If you do, search R&D for an asset, reveal it and install it. Shuffle R&D. And that's a good way to get things like the dedicated server, which is going to lower your ice cost, and without having to have too many copies of it. Alright guys, that is our Jinteki damage deck for the brewery. Its main focus is on killing the runner before he gets the agendas. You don't have to worry about the agendas at all, except for the ways they can get extra damage for you. And remember, with this identity, all you have to do is get the runner down to that magic number, so you can flip this and he's gone. Alright, see you next time, Netrunners. Bye!